Darklings! So I'm back with another director spotlight, and what makes this one a little bit different than some of the others is that this guy doesn't exactly do horror films very much. Only a few films of his have been made so far. I mean, he's been a director of films for about 15 years. So Tarsem Singh came from India, and he was born in 1961, and he's a very fascinating visual director, and I felt kind of compelled to do a video on him because I realized I'd seen pretty much all of his films and that they all are very beautiful to look at and very artfully crafted and very, very unique. He initially was doing direction for REM music videos and stuff like that, and then his first film came in 2001 with The Cell. Excuse my kind of weird DVD copy. This used to be a rental. But The Cell is one of the few movies I can watch Jennifer Lopez in. It also has Vincent D'Onofrio and Vince Vaughn, and it's more of a crime thriller with kind of like sci-fi elements to it than it is a horror film, but this is the closest out of these films that is horror related. So for those of you who have seen the film, the visuals probably were really, really striking. The color palettes are very vivid. There's a lot of drama and a lot of this really cool atmosphere that adds to it. The concept is that Jennifer Lopez plays a psychologist who goes into the dreams of her patients, specifically at the beginning of the film, a young boy in a coma, to try and figure out a problem. And when they have a serial killer who's in a coma and they need to find his next victim, they enlist her help. It's a very interesting film. It's not perfect, but it's actually really cool and it's really good and has a lot of really interesting visual concepts to it. And probably in his top form, 2006, we have The Fall, featuring David Fincher's production and, sorry, I'm escaping, his name is escaping me, but Lee Pace in one of the main roles. This is about a young girl who's in the hospital who gets told stories, and in Southern California in the early 1900s, when it's still mostly Mexico, and she's getting told all these stories, and her imagination kind of lives the stories that he tells her. It is an absolutely gorgeous film. I mean, the plot is it's pretty simple, it's pretty basic, it's not very frilly, but the story, how it's realized, is absolutely stunning. Most of it was paid out of pocket and was taking a lot of risks in order to make it because it's very much an art film. And it's filmed in over 30 countries with, again, with his super bright, beautiful color palettes. And it's definitely worth a watch just because it's so pretty. Next one on here with a little bit more CGI and a little bit lower quality than the other stuff, but still quite fun, is Immortals with Henry Cavill. And I thought this was kind of a fun film. I didn't see it until more recently. And I bought it just because I realized I liked the director and ended up watching it. And I'm like, okay, I guess that was kind of worth the buy. But this isn't my favorite out of his stuff. It's very visual, it's very fun. It kind of blends, it takes a bunch of Greek myths and puts them in a blender and just kind of hopes for the best. But overall, it looks really cool. It's reminiscent of 300 a little bit because it has a lot of that same like visual choreography stuff, and some of the way that the color palettes are treated is reminiscent of that. But this is kind of a fun one too. And one of his more recent ones, this one I ended up seeing in a theater and I didn't know it was him at the time until afterwards, is Mirror Mirror. This is one of the more fun adaptations of Snow White that I ended up liking compared to the other Snow White film that came out in 2012 that was rather lackluster. With Lily Collins and Julia Roberts, this one was definitely very fun, very bright colors, and it kind of has this feel of an animated film brought into the real world. So there's a lot of elements about it that are too fantastical for the real world, but still seem to work very, very well. The costumes are gorgeous and definitely makes me bring up... So for those of you who have seen this film, Bram Stoker's Dracula, you might recognize the costume designer, Ikyo Ishioka, I believe is how you pronounce her name. I'm terrible at Japanese, but she was an absolutely amazing, amazing costume designer, and she did all the designs for these other 4 films, but all of her costumes are so detailed and they are characters in their own right. Unfortunately, she did die in 2012, shortly after finishing with Mirror Mirror. but she has absolutely insanely beautiful costumes that kind of make me want to cry a lot. She's probably my favorite costume designer in the film industry. She's from Japan, and she was in her 70s when she died. I don't know cause of death, but it's still a great loss to the visual effects department of any film and to the fashion industry at large. But her costumes are very integral in his films. The only other film of his that I can think of, and I haven't seen it, it's the most recent one, is Selfless from 2015. I'm not entirely sure on the plot. I probably will end up watching it, even with the loss of Iko's work. I'm sure it'll still be a very interesting film. From my understanding, it's a sci-fi and should be good. I don't really know. Anyway, this one's a little shorter because he just doesn't have that many films, but I do especially recommend checking out Tarsem's work. I'd say that The Fall is probably his biggest visual treat. If you're in for something that's kind of cute and kind of funny, I do recommend Mirror Mirror. It's nice, family friendly, kind of silly. Anyway, till next time, Darklings.